Today on the show, we're discussing the infamous Magic Kingdom attraction, ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter, and a live show in Los Angeles paying tribute to this theme park attraction in an extreme way. Joining me to discuss are the creators of the live show Alien Encounter, Adam Franklin and Amit Itelman. You might remember me briefly commenting on this production during last season of the podcast. I was blown away by the insanity of it all, as I was being drenched in alien mucus and blood in a live show unlike anything you've ever experienced. It was absolutely clear to me from the moment the experience began that the folks involved are big fans and have great respect for the Disney parks. Enjoy my conversation with the creators of Alien Encounter while we discuss the development of their live show and the original Disney attraction it's based on.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Hello, Amit and Adam, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast. How you doing today?
How's it going, Jeff?
We are fantastic. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because I experienced your show this past Halloween season. I think it was actually slightly after Halloween, but I heard about your show. I was actually at Walt Disney World with some friends, and my friend Jeff mentions to me, hey, I saw an article that some crazy lunatics in Los Angeles brought the ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter to life for a live stage show. And I was like, what? And then I look into it and I go, oh, you're going to be covered in blood? Fantastic. So of course I had to go. It was so much damn fun. But before we get into all that, I want to talk about ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter at Magic Kingdom. Kind of an infamous attraction at this point, wouldn't you say?
The most infamous, the most messed up attraction in the history of Disney, we believe.
I'd say so. It's pretty insane that they would put an attraction like this at the Magic Kingdom specifically. You know, in this attraction, you're in pitch black darkness and, you know, using sensory effects, you hear an alien just like rampaging through the room, murdering people, murdering a Disney employee, for all the kids know, a Disney employee that then bleeds all over them, leaving everyone screaming, leaving kids traumatized, including myself, in the best way possible. Actually, it had an immense effect on me to a point where now we opened our own show of it. I'm actually like impressed, not only that it opened, but that it stayed opened as long as it did.
So that's one of the things that's really kind of interesting. I think a lot of people have not experienced this. I have actually personally. Both of you have experienced it in person. Is that correct?
No, Adam experienced it, and we're both theme park nerds and attraction nerds, and we both come from theater and performance. But Adam and I have been working together for a long time doing various projects, and it always ends up being about Alien Encounter. So he was telling me about Alien Encounter for years as this incredible, horrific, wrong, frightful, violent show that had no business in Disney. So to me, it's like a legend. In a weird way, Adam described it so well. I think in my imagination, it's probably more spectacular than it actually was.
You are thinking of it as more spectacular than it actually was, because I experienced it and I thought it sucked. So, Adam, I'm actually really intrigued to hear your show is better than the ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter. Like, let's go to the beginning. Magic Kingdom, December 16th, 1994. This is when they start previews of the attraction. It doesn't officially open until June 20th of 1995. So that's a good amount of months there that they're tweaking, testing, changing this attraction because it was a very problematic attraction. Before that even, there were concepts of making it an alien attraction based on the 1979 film. It was going to be called Nostromo, which is the name of the spacecraft in that film. So, this concept had a long history. Michael Eisner was the guy that wanted to get teenagers in the parks excited about scary thrill attractions. And that's really how this all was born. But as you said, it ran for a good amount of time. If the official opening was 95, the closing date was October 13th, 2003. So it actually ran for 8 years. I know there's a lot of people out there that feel like, I think in their minds, oh, it was like a 6-month run. I never got to experience it. 8 years, not long for a theme park attraction, but also not short.
Yeah, and for people that did experience it later in its run, they'd assume that, oh, we saw the toned down version, but it's actually the opposite. Like, it had more comedic light elements in its original incarnation. I first saw, I want to say it was around the time that it opened. My family and I, we were at the Magic Kingdom. And by the way, people need to understand that, like, how unassuming this attraction was. It had like a very small marquee and door to go into it, and you kind of didn't know what you were walking into. You just assume, you'd go across the path, and there was the Robin Williams robot show. I forget what it's called, the Timekeeper or something like that.
The Timekeeper, yep.
Yeah, like really family friendly stuff, like heartwarming stuff. And then you'd walk to this next door and go in, and you'd see a robot. This time it's voiced by Phil Hartman, and you're like, okay, this is like the Timekeeper. We're gonna go see like this amazing demonstration in teleportation. And then you're led into the main room, where then this horrific alien appears and breaks free from its chamber.
Let me ask this.
Yeah.
The robot at the beginning, I understand, actually demonstrated teleportation, which led to a little furry creature being basically turned inside out, like a Cronenberg movie.
So yeah, his name was Skippy. I think part of the problem here was he was a very cute character that, yes, when he was transported, he became kind of terrifying. But he was kind of a cute, lovable character. As you said, you had the Phil Hartman character as well that was, Phil Hartman, so lighthearted, which eventually changed to Tim Curry to make it much more sinister as it went through these changes. But the Skippy character was kind of sweet, and then the main show featured, although the Alien film franchise was removed from the attraction, it was still like a scary monster. It wasn't this cute, fluffy, Alf-like thing.
Yeah, and what was cool about Disney back then was that when they first were hearing from audiences and realizing that they made an attraction that was so scary, that was like too scary, they decided, instead of toning it down, to just double down on the darkness, where they're like, oh, okay, so let's make no mistake, this is a horror ride. So then they cast Tim Curry as that alien as that robot in the pre-show, and made it even darker than it originally was. And I feel like we're in a state now at the parks where like they're almost ignoring villains, like Tiana's Bayou Adventure not having any, voodoo in it, and like not having a villain in it. And I feel like we're even seeing more of that now. It's like so different. But back then, I don't think we realized how good we had it with Michael Eisner. At least this is like pre Paul Pressler era, like Eisner, when he was like actually making a difference in the parks.
I'm a huge Michael Eisner fan, so yeah. I love the stuff that he did for the most part. But yeah, you're right. And what's so fascinating about Disney kind of straying away from villains and scary is now they're building a villain's land in Magic Kingdom based on their animated villains. But the funny thing is this is like, they clearly recognize villains are huge, right? Fantasmic's been running for decades, which is themed around villains, and villains are very, very, very popular. But they're all so old now because they don't make good new villains. So yeah, so it's really weird that Disney recognizes villains are huge, but kind of refuses to make new villains. I'm all for scare children. I think it's super healthy to put a little fear in kids when it comes to villains, and, obviously don't terrify them. But like Ursula is awesome. And if that scares children a little, cool. Do it.
And also the history of folklore and fairy tales really is horrific, especially those German children's tales. Shock-Headed Peter and all that are really frightening, horrific stories. I don't know why they were intending to scare children as much as they did, but they really made those stories kind of immortal. And the witch in Snow White is the evil, witch. Is the evil queen is incredibly frightening.
That transformation in the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from the evil queen to the old hag, is terrifying. If you really watch it and analyze it, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, good stuff.
Well, a good story requires a good villain, as we all know, and a hero can only overcome a villain. The greater the villain, the greater the hero. So we need good villains. Why do you think they're stopping? Why do you think they're afraid of that?
Because they're scared of scaring children. Because everybody's really sensitive these days, and everybody, baby handles their kids. And listen, I'm a guy without children, and so perhaps I have no say in the matter. But I'll tell you what, if I was making an animated movie or children's content, once again, we're not looking to terrify them. We're looking to put a little scare in them. And I grew up with it. I turned out fine-ish. Adam, Amit, I'm sure you grew up with it as well. You both are, humans living in society, not terribly traumatized.
That's subjective. That hasn't been confirmed.
We can now say that we grew up in a time where Snow White had a scary adventure. Because it's funny, Amit, you bring up like the witch, like, if you've been on the Snow White ride, which had a great, I like that ride better than, like, as a kid, I dug that more than I did like Peter Pan or Pinocchio, where you're just being chased by the witch the entire ride. It's terrifying and awesome.
The Disney World Snow White?
Snow White's Scary Adventures. The dark ride, they originally, I forget what the original name was, but eventually they changed the name to Snow White's Scary Adventures to kind of give the heads up, like, hey, this is a bit scary for some kids. So they had that for many, 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 many years. And now at Disneyland, it's Snow White's Enchanted Wish.
Yeah.
So they ripped away the scary of it.
The witch isn't necessarily such a huge problem for Snow White on this version of the ride. The whole second half is like more of like a
fairy tale.
It ends in romance now and magic than it does like crushing a witch with a rock with a rock after like a terrifying chase.
Yeah. So in any case, villains, were once huge. They still are huge. They just don't really make new ones. But this attraction was next level. It was terrifying. And listen, I don't even disagree. I don't think Magic Kingdom was the right place for it. It's one of those semi-rare-ish attractions that never was copycatted anywhere. It existed at Magic Kingdom alone, and that's it. Even though it was originally being created for Disneyland, it ended up at Magic Kingdom. And, it had that like 8-year life.
I will say like, it was really out of place to have it at Magic Kingdom, but as you brought up, this was originally slated for Disneyland as part of like their Tomorrowland 2055 project that then got squashed and it got moved from Disneyland to Disney World. And I will say, like, Disneyland, I think people have the wrong idea of what Disneyland is who haven't been there. They assume it's the smallest of the parks and therefore is like lesser than. But in reality, when you do go to Disneyland, they've jam-packed so many attractions into that park. They basically took like the best parts of Florida, like all the parks in Florida, just like put them all into one piece of property where like there's so many more thrills in that park. I don't think it would have seemed as out of place. Like if you start in Adventureland and you go on like the Indiana Jones adventure, making your way to Tomorrowland and then going on Alien Encounter actually wouldn't seem as crazy. You know what I mean? But I think like the fact that they put it in the Magic Kingdom that has such a smaller lineup of attractions that are mostly geared towards young kids, it makes it seem extra crazy. I'm glad they did it, but it does seem extra crazy.
So Adam, I want to hear, Amit said that you essentially pitched this attraction to him. He heard so much about it. He felt like he had experienced it himself, even though he hadn't. So I want to hear that pitch. When you're talking to Amit about ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter and why it's so fantastic and you'll never forget it, what's that pitch?
All right.
Remember, I had never heard of this. This was completely left field.
Did you know it existed? Had you ever heard the name ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter?
Blank canvas. I had no idea. It was totally shocking, bizarre. Everything he was saying, I was like, what? Tongues coming out of the chair? I was like, wait. Are you telling me there was a tongue attached to a chair or a mechanical tongue?
So my personal experience was, I think I only experienced it one time. And I will say I was a little bit hyped for it in the sense that I had seen a lot of TV marketing for it. I was a kid that grew up watching like the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, and any TV special of behind the scenes stuff they had, I watched. And, Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter was heavily marketed, and the marketing videos are great. Like, they're really good. If you look at them, they're very cinematic. It's really not the experience you get, which, listen, isn't uncommon. If you watch marketing videos of Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, a lot of times you'll see guests standing in an elevator while it drops. Well, we all know you sit down with a seatbelt, so it's not exactly the same. This was kind of a huge stretch, I would say, with Extraterrestrial. And I just remember going in, and binaural sound is a huge part of the experience, where you're sitting in complete darkness and it's kind of the sound traveling around you, and then in theater effects that your imagination is supposed to kind of fill in the blanks. And I know that that's like a way of telling a story. I know Hitchcock is famous for showing less and the mind will fill in the gaps and make it even scarier. I don't think that concept relays too well in theme parks. I've seen it several times. I know there was something with Drew Carey, I think at Disney MGM Studios at the time, called Sounds Dangerous, where you basically sat in darkness, and same thing, binaural sound, and it sucked. Maybe I'm just not the audience for it. I don't like sitting in darkness with audio around me with some water spraying on me. I don't know. It doesn't scare me, that's for sure. But apparently people were terrified by this.
I have a question. How old were you?
Sure.
How old were you when you saw it?
I want to say, well, let's see. If it opened in 95, the youngest I could have been is 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I was probably like 14 or 15.
So you were a teenager. You weren't like a little kid.
True.
So
but
maybe this
is an attraction that apparently scares adults.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you, Adam?
Well, this was probably 95 or 90. Early 95 and I was born in 83. So I would have been
12,
yeah. Which I think is prime age for something like that. I was old enough to appreciate like how ridiculous it was at the time.
Yeah. And so basically they're doing this big experiment where they're teleporting an alien. At first, it's not supposed to be the alien that comes to get you. The alien does arrive and it breaks loose. And, it's a circular theater, and the alien is traveling all around you through these in-theater effects. A lot of water, a lot of air, some, I think, scents are involved with this. The interesting thing is they put these harnesses over your shoulders so that a lot of the effects are within those harnesses, but also you can feel the pressure of it like pressing down on your shoulders, so it kind of feels like the alien is crawling over you. I just remember feeling like it was a little bit cheesy. And so when it went away, I really wasn't sad. And I do think I only experienced that one time. I did get to experience Stitch's Great Escape, which opened in November of 2004. So just about a year after Alien Encounter closed, it came back as Stitch's Great Escape. Same exact concept, but instead of a terrifying alien, it was now the cute and lovable Stitch. Before he was cute and lovable, but still. So same thing. But Adam, obviously it made a bigger impact on you. So I would just love to hear, like, did you go in knowing anything? Had you seen the marketing?
I hadn't seen any of the marketing going into it, which I think helped because I really didn't know what I was in for. And, I was about 12 years old at the time, and I was old enough to even get some of the tongue-in-cheek humor of the fact that, like, the concept of the attraction is that there's an intergalactic company called XS that has a showroom in Tomorrowland where they're showing off this teleportation technology. But like a huge joke of it was the fact that like this is like a company of excess, this huge conglomerate that kind of sucks at their job. They're so big and everything's so convoluted. Everything gets screwed up, which is basically the Walt Disney Company. You know what I mean? And then, you see this lovable character, Skippy, be completely turned into toast during the pre-show. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's different. I didn't expect to see something like that at the Magic Kingdom. And then going into the main room, just even walking into that teleportation room, there was like something in the air. Like, I think, it's like, when you walk into a show like that and you can smell the smells of the show that had just gotten out. So you just knew you're like in for something. You could smell like there was something wet in the room. You could smell the smoke. You just knew you were in for something. And then just sitting in those chairs, those massive chairs where the straps would like lower down on you, so cold and hard on your shoulders. It was really uncomfortable and creepy. And, like you were saying about the sensory stuff, something that doesn't come across when people can watch it on people that never experienced it when they watch it on YouTube, is the fact that those shoulder harnesses would crush down on your shoulders to like simulate the alien, which had to weigh like, I think they like simulate as if it weighs like 500 pounds, like jumps on your shoulders and will like leap off of you, and like, I don't think they would do anything like that today. I feel like, any safety officer would come in and see that part and be like, you know what, cut the shoulder thing. I loved the sensory stuff. And I direct a lot of magic shows, and I was a big magic fan as a kid. And I was fascinated by like spook shows and, horror theater shows in the dark. And this was basically like Disney's attempt at doing a spook show in a sort of way, where a lot of it happens in the dark. And, I personally thought they didn't pull any punches. The fact that this alien does murder people in the room, and you can hear their flesh being torn, you can hear them screaming and writhing in agony, and you're being like hit with their warm, it's water, but like you're being hit with their warm blood. By the way, when that happens, the guy's getting killed, everyone gets covered in blood, and then we hear a voice from a character being like, please, everyone, do not scream. If you scream, it'll hear you. And then like more blood, like it's, draped onto you, and everyone's screaming. It's like such a, oh man, it's such a cool, I'm so surprised that you didn't dig it, Jeff, because I feel like that's like, I think it's one of the coolest things they've ever done. Honestly. I mean, it's so extreme that people even remember it as a ride. Everyone calls it a ride for some reason, even though there's no ride element to this at all. It was very much just a show, but it had like the thrills of a ride.
Yeah, listen, I'm a horror fan, so maybe that was just part of it. Like, I'm not a jump scare person. Even as a kid, I don't remember being super scared by jump scare stuff, and I just enjoy horror. So maybe I'm just a bit more jaded by that stuff. I don't know. I just remember being in a lot of darkness, and to me that felt cheap. It wasn't doing what they were trying to accomplish, which is fine. Listen, I am grateful to have accomplished it. I know that it's like part of Disney mythology at this point. There are so many people who have never experienced it. So listen, if you're listening to this podcast and you're one of those people who never got to experience it, and you're like super envious that you never got to experience it, just take it from me. You didn't miss much. But on the other hand, Adam obviously thinks you missed the greatest thing in the world. So listen, you can go either way. I love that you loved it, Adam. I love that.
But by the way, I'm also, my parents took me to Universal Studios as a really young kid. Like, I remember when it was all like basically just the tram tour in Hollywood. So I grew up loving attractions where like you're on one thing and then something terrible goes wrong, and then it's up to you to solve it's up to you to save the day, which was like the Universal, like that's the Universal formula. You know what I mean?
That's the Disney formula. That's the theme park formula.
It is the theme. Yeah, it is.
Amit, I want to know, so you get pitched this idea. You had never heard of extraterrestrial alien encounter. You start hearing about it. Number one, what are you thinking? Number two, what kind of research do you start doing to see what exactly this crazy thing was?
Well, first of all, to begin, it wasn't like a pitch. It was just like, we talk about theme parks all the time, right? And it's just something that he kept bringing up. And so I would say it was just, I almost want to say years of Adam telling me about this very casually. Like, man, no, you had to see it. They had this cute like teddy bear thing, and it was teleported, and then it was like inside out, and like steam and goo was pouring out of its eyeballs, and it's Disney World, and these things would just come up in conversation. Once we transitioned into deciding, you know what, we're mounting this. We're remounting this. We're doing our version of Alien Encounter. We're punk rock Imagineers, and we're going to do it our way. that's when the research started. And I got to tell you, it's like we talked about earlier. Once we got really into it, we kind of took a reverse avenue and decided to throw away a lot of what it actually was. Of course, all of that stuff's online. And so we actually found the videos. We could have remounted it using the actual videos. That wouldn't have been legal, but it crossed our minds. But the more we got into it and got into the videos and actually watching the attraction unfold online, which is all there to be seen, it kind of went back to me loving what Adam was describing, which I really didn't see as much in watching the footage. Also, so much of it relied on video, right? And I knew, coming from theater, doing theater for 3 decades, it's like, oh no, like I was like, we got to do this live, right? We need actual human beings that we can connect to. We quickly realized that our imagination was much more interesting than recreating it closely to what the actual attraction was. First of all, we don't have the option to recreate it accurately because we don't have $20 million to build a monster that's 3 stories high, right? And it kind of made us kind of lean back into what we do best, which is live shows and live theater. And then we decided, no, we got to do this with real actors and human beings and actually bring the narrative into people's experience with humans, not with video projection. And so that was a huge thing. There's nothing better than a human that you can actually relate to, as opposed to a video clip. And then actually, in deciding that we're just throwing it away, it opened it up to like, all right, once I started writing, and I was like, okay, we got to do like a 3-act narrative here. It's simple. It's really, bare bones, and it's an attraction, and it's only, going to be 20 pages long. But we do need like a 3-act narrative, and we do need to fall in love with the characters who are then threatened, so the audiences feels a part of their danger before they themselves become in danger. So it was really a matter of throwing away what existed and actually starting from scratch, but completely being inspired by and doing a parody of the original attraction.
One of the things I do love about the attraction is some of the writing, some of the verbiage that they come up with is great. So this all took place inside the, quote, Tomorrowland Interplanetary Convention Center. So I thought that was smart. They put a convention center in Tomorrowland so that this, quote unquote, temporary exhibit could kind of take place. And then there was the name alone, the ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter. By the way, I should mention George Lucas was involved with the creation of this. But the ExtraTERRORestrial, like, that's clever. That's smart. Whoever was thinking that, XS Tech, X-S Tech, XS Tech, that's so clever. So like the words they're using, the vocabulary they're created for this is really smart. I'm going to assume your show is simply called Alien Encounter because ExtraTERRORestrial is trademarked, and or you're just afraid of going anywhere near that. Is that correct?
Well, two things. One, I think, we always just refer to it as Alien. I think most people just refer to it as Alien Encounter. And we thought of different titles. We came up with 10 different titles. And then I think we were just like, let's just call it Alien Encounter, dude. It also, just to differentiate it between the Walt Disney World attraction and our show, they're 2 different things. They really are.
Okay. So you decide we're going to do this as a live show. You commit to it. How did the first production come about? How did you find a venue to do it? Where did the money come from? Like, how did this become a reality?
So I have a theater company called Trepanny House. And we are in residence at Titmouse, the animation studio Titmouse. And I they had a giant warehouse. And many years ago, I had a show called Bride of Blood, which was kind of a dark fantasy with King Solomon interacting with heavenly and demonic entities. And I built a lot of giant puppets. And one of the reasons why I went to Titmouse, other than their friends and were very generous and had been familiar with my work for 20 years, is I needed to build a stage specifically for this show. So Bride of Blood had these giant puppets, and Titmouse was really supportive of my past theater productions. And so they agreed to give me this warehouse and allow me to build a theater for this production Bride of Blood in order to house all these giant puppets. And that ended up being a really successful show. We ended up running for 8 months, and it ended up going to Tokyo, actually. And Titmouse was really happy with it. And they're like, you know what? You're the resident theater company of Titmouse. So once that happened, it's like it just opened the door. And I always knew, it's like, all right, Alien Encounters next. We'd already been talking about it for years, right? Mm-hmm. So it was just ready to go. And then, so once Bride of Blood closed, we immediately began pre-production for Alien Encounter. And it was a really long process. We had to obviously build the alien, which was a very long process. It took a lot of time. And the set, everything took a lot of time. And it was just me, Adam, and our tech director, Michael Lewis, who's amazing. And Gina Farina from Sonova helped us with the set. And Kylie helped us. We had a small team, but a very small team. And so the thing is, when it's such a small crew and such a small group of creatives, you either need money or time, as they say. And so we had time. And we had Titmouse being completely supportive. And they were like, look, just don't make noise during the day. That was their thing. Because they have offices. So they were like, don't hammer nails, don't use a jigsaw during the day. But other than that, you can do whatever you want. So we became nocturnal. And then at 6 p.m., we were able to go to like 4 or 5 in the morning for as long as we wanted. So it was a very slow process. I was able to get some small grants to support it. So it was basically the generosity of Titmouse, some small grants and time, and no other shows, no other rotating shows. That would have killed us, because I used to run the Steve Allen Theater, and I would do like multiple shows a month. It was constantly rotating shows, which was part of the beauty of the Steve Allen Theater. But the Titmouse Warehouse is different. You know, I'm trying to focus on one show at a time, which allows us to really try to do extraordinary things within our limit, you know, and it allows us to build things and take months to create things and leave them there. You know, most people in theater, there's so many obstacles where you build this amazing set, and then the theater's like, hey, we've got another show coming up, so you're going to have to tear it down. But you can come back in 3 weeks. And you're like, no, you don't understand. We have bodies hanging from the ceiling, you know. And so Titmouse just allowing Trepanning House to be in residence and allowing Trepanning House to do whatever we wanted was just the golden goose, you know.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, we were very aware and appreciative that we had the time and the space to do this, because this show, unlike other theater shows, we really retrofitted the room for this particular show. You know, when you walk into the theater, it's not just this, I mean, the set's all around you in some way, you know, kind of like extraterrestrial, even though it's not theater in the round. We built an entire like 360 degree sort of set, and with a fake ceiling, like a false ceiling above the audience. And it's like something that with such a small team, you know, we wouldn't have been able to like put that up and take it down quickly. So I think like it was like right space, right time for this.
What an amazing privilege to have Titmouse. I got to tell you, like, I've worked in theater for many, many years. I know that what you have is just an amazing privilege, and you're in Los Angeles, and you want to know what you have that I got to tell you as a guest consumer changes everything. You have a free parking lot. Unbelievable. Yeah. I kid you not. That is such a big deal in the middle of Hollywood.
Yeah, it is.
It's wild.
It is.
So that's amazing. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience having gone and done this, and just you had me laughing so hard before the damn show even started. And that is me and a bunch of strangers. By the way, I will say, you guys warn us very well. You will be covered in blood by the end of this. And part of you goes and being like, they're not going to really cover us in blood. Oh no, you get covered in blood. And when I say blood, I don't just mean water. I mean like red dyed water, because I got to tell you, I came home to take a shower and I noticed my face is covered in red. What I thought it was just water, I was like, no, they actually dyed the water. Fantastic. But in any case, I'm standing there in the parking lot being ready to be let in. And this quote unquote cast member, who is an actor in the show, comes out and starts doing one of those, the custodial cast members at Disneyland and the Disney parks. They do their fun little Mickey drawings and stuff, and they're really good. Like, these are people who can draw Mickey and the characters really well. Well, your half-assed cast member draws 3 lame circles with the most deadpan face. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, whoever created this, they are my people. I love them so much. I was having a fit laughing at that. Brilliant.
I really appreciate you picking up on these little details, because that's kind of like what was so fun about creating this. Not just the fact that like we have a custodian just sweeping Mickeys on the ground, but also, when you do enter the theater, this is almost spoiler territory, but before you're even allowed to go to your seat, we force you to go through an extremely elaborate, convoluted queue. And we do not let anyone cut. And people, every show, people do try to cut that queue, and we'll pop out from behind curtains and be like, excuse me, sir, can you please take a step back? Ma'am, please go back. This is for your safety and ours, please. You cannot cut. Stay within the lines.
It made me laugh so hard. I loved the queue stuff. I think you have like a fake fast pass. I don't know if you ever used the fast pass lane, but I saw you had like a fast pass sign. I was like, oh, it was so clear. Obviously, people could look at this and be like, oh, they're making fun of a Disney attraction. And to me, it's immediately clear. Number one, if you're going to go through the effort of creating this, I'm like, no, these are people who love the Disney parks and who love cast member life, no matter how much fun it's being poked at. It's so clear. I'm telling you, I felt it immediately before the quote unquote show even started. The show starts before you even realize it's starting. And it's, oh my God, it's just spectacular. I am curious, since you did kind of have like a warehouse space, and I'm sure I know the answer to this because I'll never forget a scenic design professor in college telling me, the minute you make anything a circle, you've just doubled the budget. But by any chance, were you ever considering doing it in the round with the kind of alien tube in the center like the original
Well, we
attraction?
considered doing the tube, right? But not we've actually talked about remounting this as an in the round show in other venues. So it is something we talk about, and that would be super fun to do. But when we were originally talking, the alien was going to come out of a tube, and then we realized that would be way too difficult. And, without giving anything away, what you saw was kind of the solution and the easiest solution, and it made a lot of sense for us.
And there is, mention of, it does kind of follow the storyline of the original attraction, but it definitely has more characters and, goes in different directions. One of the things I found kind of interesting was the mention of Tiana's Bayou Adventure in the script. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're in present day. Like, I kind of thought you might lean into this nostalgic feel. Was that an ad-lib that
was
night?
Probably Sienna ad-libbing, because there's definitely a solid script, but Sienna and Davey definitely throw in ad-libs, and it's a very interactive show, and the audience really dictates what the show is going to be, because we have had such a variety of audiences. We've had people who love it but take it very seriously and are kind of blown away and horrified and amazed, but they're seeing like this incredible thing that they tell all their friends about, but it's kind of a profound theater experience. And then we have other crowds that are like treating it like it's a Rocky Horror show. That, and in this show, I wouldn't say this for a lot of shows. In this show, it's totally okay if the audiences are interactive and are vocal. In this show, it's okay if they're vocal, because in an attraction, you do have that. And it's okay if the audience is having fun and having a loud experience and talking to their friends and talking to the cast members. That's true, in the source of what we're doing a parody of. So it really works well. And we've kind of grown to love the rowdy. They're not heckling, but they're rowdy and they're interactive and they're having a great time. And the more the audience is engaging with the cast, the more the cast gives itself permission to kind of ad lib and throw out new things. But that was an ad lib from Sienna. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when we were in rehearsals on the show, we told the cast, this is theater, but the audience is a co-star here. The audience plays the part of Disney World guests coming into the room. And that was also something a little bit different, from the original show, which was like, we talk about that you're at Disney World. You know what I mean? Like that people did just come from Tiana's Bayou Adventure. We decided to that ad lib we've kept in the show. It's just fun. We kind of stopped caring about any sort of timeline.
Oh, you're Galaxy's Edge.
Yes. What's interesting? Originally, there was one version of this show that we were kind of toying with where it was going to be a pass holder preview night for Alien Encounter, and Michael Eisner was going to be the live host.
Dude, you're blowing my mind. Please bring that.
And since we didn't do it, we can give you spoilers. But yes, he gets decapitated.
He gets decapitated in a very epic way. Yeah.
Dude, I want to see that. Wait a sec. Why did you decide against that? That is so good.
There's 1,000 options that we had, and they all had value. So we went with what we had, with what we ended up going with.
Also, just like, this is with any sort of creative endeavor. It's like you're always trying to sort of whittle it down to like its strongest, like the simplest, strongest form. And I think like somehow we had lost that, and then we put more emphasis on the scientist character.
Well, I know why, but I don't want to give away spoilers because I feel like people are going to see the show. But there is a reason why. And if you think about it, you can figure it out. Because there's a moment that replaces that moment, and the new moment is stronger than the gag of having Michael Eisner.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk around this as well to not spoil anything. But there's stuff that happens in this show that I've seen, like I said, I've seen a lot of live stuff, a lot of theater, and I can typically smell BS from a mile away.
Yeah.
And there was stuff that happened that in normal situations, I would be like, okay, I get where this is going. I was twice smacked across the head by you guys, and not by blood. I was just like, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They pulled that off, and I'm shocked.
Part of that is the actors that we have. We have really great actors. Yeah, you're probably talking about Mark Feit, an actor by the name of Mark Feit from a comedy troupe called Two-Headed Dog. And he's the best. And I know what moment you're talking about. And yeah, he's a very good actor. And it's a very difficult thing to accomplish what he accomplishes.
Yeah. It's wild. Anybody listening to this who doesn't live in Los Angeles, I feel a little bad, because write me or send me a voicemail if you don't live here and you'll never go see the show. I'll spoil it for you individually, but to anybody who's gonna go, you don't even want to know what we're talking about right now, because it's just wild. I do want to talk a little bit about, we mentioned how in the real attraction there's a lot of video content, and they have some celebrity names in that video content, but for the purpose of your attraction, you do have a video monitor on the set, a set which, by the way, is gorgeous and kind of shocked me when I walked in, because, it's in the middle of a warehouse in the middle of Hollywood. I was not expecting like production value when it came to scenic design and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, like this lighting's beautiful. This set is gorgeous. You have this video monitor on the set, and you created original video content for this. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Also, our actor is a celebrity that people don't realize, but the actor who you see is actually Dana Snyder, who is Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh,
yeah,
how funny.
So.
We shot that on green screen in my living room, and Kylie Chavez-Grass, who was the art director on the show that helped build that set, she did all the makeup and prosthetics for him. And, that was tough because we had to shoot that well in advance of having built the theater, so, we had him on green screen. We kind of knew like what we wanted to do tone wise with it. And we had to sort of like finalize that dialogue way ahead of time because like, it's an interactive video where like the actor in the theater is speaking to the person on the screen and they're having dialogue back and forth. And it was like the one thing we were married to in the show, but I feel great about it. Like that's held up throughout the entire production. There were moments where I was like, oh, maybe we'll want to cut a couple lines, but that survived the entire run, that video piece.
That's fantastic. And who worked on your scenic design?
It was really a small team. It was myself. It was our art director, Kylie Chavez-Gruss. It was Amit. It was Michael. It was just us in there. And we'd just go in there and like during the day we could paint and we could glue. And then at night, when the television production people went home from work upstairs, that we'd bring out the drills and the hammers and the saws. And we'd just be in there figuring out how to build this thing. We've been in theater, all of our lives, but for this, it was we were trying new things and, we were doing things that we had never done before, especially at this scale. We had some ambitious ideas. And some of that is like spoilers that I don't know if we want to talk about, but there was some ambitious stuff where we were like, well, how do we even do that? And we just sort of had to figure it out.
We also got lucky with a company called Sonova. So I have a friend named Gina Farina, who is one of the people that runs Sonova, and they're major. They build the sets for the Academy Awards, right? They do major stuff. And she's just a fan of small theater. And she's been coming to shows for like 20 years. And she's just this insane resource who's like, let me know if you need any help. And she's one of the reasons why we were able to pull it off. Because we didn't have to pay for that sort of labor. Where normally, that would have cost an insane amount. So we're thankful that Sonova and Gina Farina were really, helpful in that set.
That's awesome. I did catch one hidden Mickey in the set. Is there more than one? Did I miss some?
I'm glad you caught that hidden Mickey. Yeah. There may be more. If you come back, there might even be some additional ones.
We can't say.
Okay.
Yeah. Something about keeping it a small team actually gave us a lot of freedom. The fact that like we weren't a $40 million attraction being put into Tomorrowland and that we didn't need to rely on animatronics or pre-recorded audio, gave us tons of freedom to really do a lot with the show. One thing we knew right away was that, and this kind of touches on, Jeff, what you were talking about, where you said you thought the original show was kind of lame. That sensory in the dark stuff was kind of lame. And I don't disagree with you because, one thing that Amit and I talked about was the fact that like when you're at a spook show or you're at like a seance that has like ghost effects, whenever there was something live in the room in the dark, it was always scary. But then when it would cut to when they would cue something on like a surround sound system, suddenly all that tension went away and you felt safe. And I feel like the original attraction was safe in that way. But at our show, when you're in the dark, there are people acting as the alien around you and you don't know who they are. We could all be psychopaths. We're in some weird warehouse, like in the middle of Hollywood. You don't know what's going to happen in the dark. And no one's there to tell us, hey, man, that's too far. This is too crazy now. No one's there to tell us this. So we have fun. And I feel like, safe fun, of course. But
safe for the audience, but not always safe for us. Like we've taken dives. We've taken nosedives in the dark.
I can believe it because it's slippery. I mean, you get drenched. That promise of being soaked in blood is truly true. The whole thing's wrapped in plastic. And here's the thing, as far as like, how far will they go? I thought you were going, when I was already drenched, I thought you went far enough. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to feel alien mucus being tossed at me, which is some gelatinous stuff that you guys have. And I'm like, holy crap, they're throwing Jell-O at me now. Like, how far will this go? And it's wild.
Yeah. I have the privilege of having night vision goggles on during that. A lot of us do. And, something that you can't see in the dark is the huge smiles on people's faces during all that blackout stuff.
I'm going to give you an idea. Right now that you should, honestly, it's not the easiest thing to execute, but you should really consider. Of course, every attraction ends with a gift shop. You have a gift shop. You have your Alien Encounter t-shirts. If there is a way to record night vision of the audience and sell those videos, that would be the greatest souvenir.
Or like photos. I'll tell you.
Photos could work.
Jeff, I'll tell you something. We are such maniacs. We have walls of ideas for the show.
I'm sure you do.
We haven't even gotten close to doing. But like, it's just, there's a universe of potentiality that we haven't touched that goes way beyond that. And that is a really good idea.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah. But even like the set, like talking about that, like, we really try to go as far as we can. And we usually land somewhere in the middle. And then it takes and then we always add in just one little thing every month. And that's one cool thing about the show. If you came back in January, there'd probably be new things that weren't there in November. This isn't a spoiler because we never did it, but we're such idiots. Like we were talking about having actual holograms, like physical 3D real holograms in the teleportation chamber. And we were having the walls were supposed to be tricked out where people are jumping out of the walls. And there's so many things in regards to merch and expanding the parody of the Disney experience that we hopefully will continue to add on to the experience, depending on how long we continue doing this.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because this originated, I think it was October of 2024, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a Halloween show, started in October, went a little bit into November, which is when I did it. Then it kind of took most of November and December hiatus and returned in January 2025. So I guess why was there the hiatus? Did you need to rework some things, or like clearly you're coming back?
Well, the holidays, in my experience, the holidays are not really a great season to do theater unless you're doing holiday specific theater.
Fair enough.
That's just kind of been my experience. And I like to go dark. And then also it's good for us and it's good for the crew to go dark. Everybody wants to go home and take a break because everybody's working real hard and everybody deserves a break.
Yeah, I will say, just to add to that, this is like a really hard show to pull off. I mean, just the fact that there's like an inch thick of blood on the floor at the end of each performance. And we do 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
We have to go, like, once that audience for the first show is let out, we go in there and we're cleaning that theater. We're wiping everything down. We're sucking up all the blood. We're, putting all the gags back in their hiding spots and getting everything ready for the next show. And it's actually, it's a lot. But, this break is actually the healthiest thing ever because there were some wild ideas that Amit and I had that we were even coming up with midway through production that we just didn't have the time or ability to do, and we can now. So when it opens back up in January, there's going to be some gags that I'm so excited. I'm probably more excited about these gags than anything we've done so far.
Yeah. Are you in Florida or are you in LA, Jeff?
I live in Burbank.
Oh, okay, great. So come back in January.
Yeah, so I plan on coming back in January with Tony Gardner, who is a special effects makeup artist, and he did like Hocus Pocus, and I know him well. He did the makeup for ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter.
Did Tony work on Reanimator?
No, Tony he's the first zombie you see in Michael Jackson's Thriller, and he started his career working under Rick Baker, and he's done, so many. His resume is insane, but we became friends kind of through the Hocus Pocus world, and since then we've talked a lot, and he's worked on several Disney attractions, including Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and he did the makeup for Alien Encounter, all the video elements you see, the Kathy and Jimmy, the Kevin Pollak stuff. So in any case, I was going to bring him back when I came in November. He wasn't available, and I've already told him, like, we need to go back in January. You need to see this.
Please, yeah, we'd love to have you guys. That would be awesome, especially for him to see it.
Well, tell me this. How would you compare the original to our version?
I like yours way more. I mean, what's the original version? 5 minutes? Yours is 25 minutes about, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a different animal. There's no comparison. Yeah, it's a completely different animal. Yours is just so much more fun. I left the original thinking that was kind of lame. What am I going to do next? I'll go to the Carousel of Progress. That'll make me happy. Yours, I left like, it's one of those shows that And actually feel bad for you guys for this because I went to the first show and I know, having worked in theater, I know you need us out of there. I know you need to clean. I'm there talking to Amit saying, I need to come back in. I need to take some photos of this. And you very graciously let me, but like, I know you wanted me out of there.
You saw us cleaning up, yeah.
I saw it. But it's one of those shows where like people hang out after in the parking lot. It's one of those shows that you talk to the strangers that you just had this experience with because nobody can believe what the hell they just did. It's wild. And it's like daring in the sense that just like you do the stuff that we all kind of think and dream about. And you're like, we can't do that to an audience. And then you do. I will tell people, and you do a great job warning people. Once again, you will be soaked. So here's my advice. Wear sandals. You do not want to wear socks and shoes at this thing. Bring a change of clothes in the car, which I did. I stripped down and changed in your parking lot because it's a necessity. Bring a beach towel to dry off and or wear a poncho. But I think the poncho thing is kind of lame. I think there should be like no poncho rules, frankly. Because what is it, an audience of 30 people?
Yeah.
Something like
How
that.
many?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small, intimate experience. It's wild. I can't. And what do you guys charge for tickets?
35.
Okay, $35. So it's not like this insanely priced night out. It's just wild fun in the heart of Hollywood. If you want to go to a bar after, go make a night of it. I don't know. I just have great things to say about my experience, which is why immediately following. And honestly, I wasn't sure. I went as media. I'm, writing a review of this theatrical experience. That's not always a win, right? Like, I have very strong opinions about things. It's not always a win for me. And I left and immediately I was like, not only are you getting a great review from me, but I want to dedicate an entire podcast episode to this because it's such this, I feel like, mystery of an attraction for so many people. The big question I have is you've talked about expanding the run. As of right now, we're recording this in mid-December. As of right now, I see tickets are being sold through January 31st of 2025. Is there any talk of an expansion? And even more so, this attraction, although there's tons of Disney fans in Southern California, as we've said, this is a Walt Disney World attraction. I actually feel it would do even better in Orlando. Is there any looking into that possibility?
We have always thought that this is the kind of show that can go to other cities. We have all sorts of crazy ideas about expanding the experience here in ways that we don't want to talk about just yet. And we always have thought about taking it to Vegas, taking it to New York. We haven't thought about Orlando. That's a really good idea. The challenging thing is moving a show like this requires a lot of money. And so we don't have those deep pockets yet. But if somebody came and wanted to support us, that would enable us to do that. Vegas, I think, would be really fun for the show. But so we would need some serious support to do something like that. But it could be, it could be a touring show, or it could be a show there could be multiple productions. There could be an Orlando version and a Los Angeles version. But we would love to expand it. It definitely feels like it has a life beyond just the Halloween season. And we do want to expand it beyond January as well. We're just trying to figure some things out. And both of us have a bunch of other projects that we're juggling. And this is kind of our love and our fun live experience. So it's definitely not the end of Alien Encounter at the end of January. But what that's going to look like is up for discussion.
I will say, this show had opened for Halloween, but that was sort of just an excuse to get the show open. We do this out of the love of the craft and just the rush of doing a show like this and the love of themed attractions. That's really what we're doing. So the idea, this expanding past January is a very huge possibility, because if it's not this, I hope it's this, but if it's not this, it's going to be something just as nuts.
So if people want to buy tickets to it and or just keep track of kind of its future, is there a newsletter that's good to sign up for, or where?
Trepanyhouse.org. That's TREPANYHOUSE.org is the website. And there's a mailing list that you can add your name to. and that's where you buy tickets as well.
Perfect. I highly recommend it. It's just so much fun. I am curious, are there any other attractions you're considering bringing to life?
Yes, but we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it. That's way too, yeah. But yes, you're totally on our radar. Absolutely. Yep. We've had a lot. Those are our major conversations that we're having.
Okay, so you obviously are leaning into a Disney fan audience. Have you found with Alien Encounter, number one, have there been people coming who really, I'm not even going to say have experienced the original, because that, it is a small number of people, I think, overall. But like, are there people who really have never even heard of this, and or how are they reacting, and or have you had anybody pissed off that you covered them in blood?
I had always hoped that we'd get a lot of Disney fans and people that had experienced the attraction to like come see it. Because the whole point of it was to sort of like relive that fun feeling of being in the dark with a monster. We do get a lot of Disney fans, a lot of passionate Disney fans. People will come in homemade merch, Alien Encounter merch. We've had some homemade Skippy shirts. We've had people come in actual merchandise from the original attraction. I remember there was one guy with a really cool shirt in the front row. And before the show even started, I had to come out from backstage and be like, hey man, do you want like a poncho or something? Because I felt bad. I was like, that shirt's about to get destroyed. Like, I don't know if you want to wear that, because I would buy that off you for like $150 if you like sold it to me right now. And he was like, I know what I signed up for, man. And I was like, okay. We've had some Imagineers come. We overheard some Imagineers after the show as they were getting up and leaving. They were like, oh, but I wish I read the review, because they were completely drenched with blood and didn't know what to do. And they like hung out in the parking lot for about an hour, just like talking and drying off before they could get in the car and leave. And I'm like such a big fan of Imagineering and, Universal Creative and all those people and all those different companies that work on this stuff. So I was like just watching them the whole time being like, I hope they liked it. I really hope they really dug it. We've had surprisingly no complaints from people about being drenched in blood. I will actually say, the first show we ever did, we had a test show with a test audience, and we were nervous that we were going too far with everything, with the goo, with the blood, with touching people, actors touching people in the dark and stuff like that. And we had a Q&A session after the show, and we happened to have had less of a red color in the blood at that time. And this woman who was sitting in the center of the audience, who got completely showered in blood at one point in the show, raised her hand and she was like, I don't think the blood's red enough. And I was like, really? Because you're covered in it right now. And she was like, yeah, I looked at myself and I was like, it could be more like blood. And we were like, okay, I guess we could do that. Because I remember Amit and I were like, maybe the blood in the audience is warm water like it was in the original attraction. But the audience was like, they came for something that they can't get at the parks. You know what I mean? And so they wanted us to sort of double down on it. So we've been lucky. Now, on the other side of the line, on the cruise side, the show is almost as dangerous. We're running around in the dark. I have like night vision goggles on. It's bloody. It's slippery. We're trying not to just kill ourselves in the dark. This isn't a show for anyone to work on behind the scenes. It's very much a labor of love between us, and the idea that we're a small crew is beneficial to us, because I don't know how many people would sign up for something like this.
I love it. I will just add the note that although I was covered in red blood when I got home, it all came out very easily in the shower, as well as off the clothing when they were washed. So nothing to worry about there. But listen, guys, it's a wild show. I really highly recommend it to any Disney fan or people who just like extreme theatrical experiences. I felt safe the whole time. It was just, I laughed so hard. I screamed a lot too. I screamed way more at your show than I ever did at the original attraction. So it's so much fun. Adam, Amit, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and have a good one.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure being on your show, and hopefully we will see you in January at Alien Encounter.
Before we go, folks, I'd like to introduce a new segment on the podcast called Mini Memories Travel Tips. Joining me is Meredith from Mini Memories Travel Agency. Hello, Meredith. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It's your first time here, but it certainly won't be the last because you'll be part of this all season long and sharing some traveling tips for those folks making their Disney vacation. So let's just start with kind of the beginning for you. How did you get into the travel agency business, and why did you decide to focus on Disney vacations?
That's a great question. It's something I actually stumbled into. I was the Disney woman. Everyone would come to me because my kids would tell about how great our trips were and how they got to do, back in the land of fast passes, which I miss. Got to ride soaring 6 times in a day without even trying, and how we knew how to, as I call it, zig when everyone else zags. And so I was having everyone contact me and planning, and there's only so many mani-pedis a woman can get in bottles of wine before she says, hey, I'm good at this. Let me do this. So 11 years later, here I am with my own company and loving it.
That's hilarious. Yes, when you are that person in a group of people's lives that come to you all the time, I have a terrible habit now. I'm not going to lie. People will ask my advice on something or opinion on something Disney. I'll be like, I recorded a whole podcast about it. Just go listen to it, which is honestly, it's not the nicest thing to say to a friend, but it is. You do get to a point where you're like, oh, am I going to talk about this again? So, oh man, I get it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I love it. So you were just kind of doing it for your own family vacations. That's how you learned. But where were you getting the info? Was this stuff you were figuring out yourself, or were you like scrolling through all the blogs and stuff?
Scrolling through all the blogs. I actually, long ago, there was a website called Tour Guide Mike, and you paid $25, and it was a whole community, and we'd ask each other questions, and we started to meet on trips. And like you, once you do something so many times, you're like, oh, let me add to that. Let me think about it. And I honestly had one terrible trip with my sister who said she was a Disney pro. And we sat outside of rides waiting for our fast pass time to come instead of doing other things. And I'm like, there has to be a better way. And so I found a better way.
Let's just start with really the beginning here. Like, why should someone use a travel agent if they've never used one before? What can you offer that, they can't do on their own? Or even if they can do it on their own, why should they go through a travel agency? Because I know there are many people who have never used one in their entire lives.
It's a great question, and one I'd like to answer because, first off, when you work with my company, there's no fee. So you book with Disney, you're paying the same price booking with me. And the most important thing is, if you call Disney or book online, you have a question, you don't have the same person to go back to. With me, you always can come back to me. I'm always the one answering the email. I'm always the one who you call. I'm the one in charge of everything. So I'm a one-point person. It's not calling and getting the cast member on Disney's line. And unfortunately, sometimes even I will call back a second time because I'm like, that's not the right answer. I know, and they have this thing called Disney's College of Knowledge, which you have to take in order to book in the Disney system. And you have to do refreshers every year. They're great. They make us stay on top of it. I also get to do what are called agent education programs, which take me down, and we go through the nitty gritty and we do everything for days. So I have the inside track, and I am supposed to be given knowledge of every discount before it comes out. Every once in a while, something will skid through and Disney will announce it to us 5 minutes before they announce it to the public. But we usually have fair warning, so I can look out for my clients and say, hey, this is coming, or even go back. And if it's a discount, check if it applies to what my clients have booked. So not only do I know the Disney product, but I'm your point person.
So that means no 30-minute hold times on the Disneyland and Walt Disney World phone lines, which still don't have callback options, which drives me crazy. It's inexcusable to me at this point.
I completely agree. And I will make those phone calls. I mean, yes, I know Disney. Yes, I book hundreds upon hundreds of trips a year for the company, but there's still times when I have to call, and I will wait in those lines instead of you.
Awesome. And if somebody was going to book a trip, how far in advance do you typically tell them to reach out to you? And I'm kind of curious, what is the most last minute trip you've ever booked? Not for yourself, but for a client.
Okay, I booked one that I booked today that leaves on Wednesday.
Oh my gosh.
They're not fun, and it's always, short little, but it's shocking that in that short window I can get so much of what they want and get it all planned. So that is that I like at least 6 months. It doesn't have to. I really, really stress before the 60 days is an important mark for Disney World, because then we're on track for everything, booking the dining, booking everything before. Disneyland, I can do a little shorter, better, because of the timeframes for booking are a little shorter and a little better. But I can make it happen whenever. I have the clients who I have lists of before Disney opens for the next year. I will have a full list of people who want to be right first booking and do it. So it's really your preference, but I can make it happen up until a few days before.
Wow. Don't do that to her, folks. Don't do that.
Thank you.
So do you kind of have if somebody was having trouble getting a dinner reservation or something that they wanted, like they tried to do it themselves, it says it's booked. Do you have any sort of inside source where you get more availability as a travel agent, or would you make that same phone call and get the same answer?
I make the same phone call and get the same answer, but I also will give you tips on when to go on to see when they're canceled. That last 24 hours now that now that you can cancel up to 2 hours before is brilliant for the consumer, but it is also brilliant for the people who don't plan ahead. It's actually working to a lot of my clients who, it's for Cinderella's Royal Table or Bust clients having that ability to 2 days before check again. And often we get it. It might not be at a great time, but we get it. So there's always those tips on when to check and what to do. But no, I do not actually have my own source of availability. I do have a lot of tips and tricks of when to do it and how to go on. For my clients making their dining, I ask them to send me a list of what they're planning to book, and I will send them the order in which to try to grab it. Tell them if they're going for a long period of time, I'll say, hey, have 2 people on and you do this and you do this. And I send them a list broken down of exactly what to do and how to quickly do it. I make sure simple things like the credit cards on the My Disney Experience so they don't have to add it and waste that time.
Perfect. So, folks, we're going to be talking about all these little tips and tricks all season long at the end of each episode, so make sure you tune in for those. It sounds like the thing is your knowledge is obviously a huge benefit to folks trying to book a trip, but also it's probably a bit of a time saver as well, right? Obviously, they spend time with you talking through everything and relaying information, but I'm going to assume it also saves them time, right?
Absolutely. They don't have to go and dig for the knowledge. They don't have to, as you say, stay on hold if something comes out that they want to change, or book that it can only be booked online. Like I book all of their VIP trips. If people want to do a VIP tour guide, I book the VIP tour guide, which can take a lot of time because it's getting in that queue in the morning. And then I know exactly what they're going to ask and how to do it. And I've already asked them all the questions. If they were trying to think of it all in the last second, that's an hour-long phone call every time. So yeah, it's all of that combined with, like I said to you when we were talking, it's really, you're getting me. You're getting one person that you talk to and that there's no charge for it. And, I'm here for you. I love it. And I want my clients to have a great trip.
Excellent. And you not only book Disney vacations, but basically any sort of vacation folks want to do, right?
Exactly. I started with Disney, but I am all over the world. Love to travel. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this. What do you like about it? Because I'm going to be completely honest. What you do sounds nightmarish to me. It is the part of a Disney vacation I do not enjoy. And I hate how much planning in advance and homework and just add-on costs and everything there are now. So the fact that there's someone like you who obviously, yeah, it's a job. You make money doing it, but you have to enjoy it to a point or else you wouldn't be doing this. So what is it about it that you enjoy?
My favorite thing is after the trip, getting the picture of joy on the family's face and the phone call or the email or the text saying, oh my God, it's more than I ever imagined. Oh my word, you made it magical. just knowing, simple do's and don'ts. And I'm the queen of over information to my clients. I want them prepared, whether it's Disney or anywhere around the world. I want them to know this is what you expect so that you're not disappointed. All right, I booked this amazing room. I want you to take advantage of all the things. Or I needed to be frugal, and I made sure that you were frugal, but you knew exactly what to expect and exactly where it came in. That's the kind of thing hearing back from my clients is, oh my word, you had me zig when they zagged and I saved so much time. It was just perfect. The best compliment is coming back and booking your next trip with me. I love it. I really love helping people. And it's a job that I don't feel like I'm in sales. I get to bring joy. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. I get to bring joy and make a process that has become too hard and too silly for a vacation simple. I really try to make it simple. I try to take care of all the staring at your phone and being on it. Yes, you have to spend time with me, but at the end of the day, when you're on your vacation, I want you not to be on your phone and not to be worrying about X, Y, and Z. I want you to have it all ready and go. And that's what brings me joy.
So folks, whether you're planning your next Disney vacation at any of the Disney resorts, a Disney cruise, an adventure by Disney, or even a non-Disney related vacation, be sure and reach out to Meredith at Mini Memories Travel and mention how you heard her on Disney Coast to Coast. I'll include a link in this episode's description so you can learn more. Thank you, Meredith. I'll chat with you again on the next episode.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Now, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll be back next month with another. And if you're looking for more before then, be sure to check out the DCTC catalog featuring hundreds of different episodes and a wide array of topics and conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, you might also enjoy DCTC episode number 777, where I chatted with Tony Gardner, who did makeup effects for ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter, Hocus Pocus, and more. I'll include a link in this episode's description. Whether you're in the car, cooking dinner, planning a Disney trip, or enjoying a shower, Disney Coast to Coast has episodes available for you to enjoy 24/7 in your favorite podcast app. DCTC Patreon members can join me and Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com later this month during our Disney Catch-Up Zoom session. Join by clicking the Patreon link in this episode's description. This episode has been executive produced by Jeffrey Riccio. Gain rewards like Jeffrey, including access to never-before-heard episodes and more, by becoming a Patreon member yourself. Until next time, anything you need can be found in this episode's description. From the DCTC hotline where you can leave a voicemail and be heard on a future episode, contact info to reach me, some free gifts from me to you, and so much more. So be sure to check out this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!